All right, welcome to the Real Estate Investor Goddesses podcast. I'm your host, Monick Halm. And on this show, we interview amazing, badass real estate investor goddesses, women that are successfully investing in real estate. And today, my guest is certainly no exception to the badass rule. My guest is Elise Alexander, who works for this really cool company called Acre Trader. She was raised on a farm and cattle ranch in Crawford County, Arkansas. Since 2003, she has served as president of a large family office, managing several companies and serving as legal counsel. From 2003 to 2012, she served as VP and General Counsel for T.A.W. Inc., an oilfield services company with $200 million in revenue across multiple states. And then prior to that, she worked as an associate in the Orrick firm in Silicon Valley. So she is an attorney like me. And she was in the corporate division, forming and advising startups and public companies regarding securities, mergers, acquisitions, IPOs. And then before that, she was in-house corporate counsel for Varian Associates in Palo Alto. And now she is at Acre Trader, which is a really cool company that she's going to tell us more about. She studied at Texas A&M University, and then she went to law school at Pepperdine, which is in my backyard. And I'm super excited to have her. Welcome, Elise.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. We're very excited to meet you and talk about real estate and farmland.
Awesome. So, because I'm really excited to have you here talking about farmland too, because that is not an asset class that I'm very familiar with at all. So, I just want to know, how did you get started in real estate in general? And then how did you get into farmland?
Yeah, I grew up on a cattle ranch in a small town in Arkansas. And so starting out, farmland was just something we grew things on or fed cattle on. I never considered it until really, honestly, fairly recently to be an investment. I knew generally that real estate held its value, especially in inflationary times. But farmland traditionally has not been very liquid. It doesn't change hands very often. There was not a traditional market for it. But I happenstance met the Acre Trader guys. They were looking for investors in the company and met with my brother over in Memphis. And he happened to mention, they said they were looking for general counsel. And he said, well, I happen to know somebody who kind of checks all the boxes for you all. Because I had worked, previously in HR and insurance and securities and startups and IPOs, mergers, acquisitions, and they needed someone. And so I fell in love with the concept first of Acre Trader and what it did and the technology platform. But then as I began to get educated about the values of farmland and how it appreciates and how it's non-correlated to the stock market more so than traditional real estate, maybe even. And I'm just learning more, and I love it. It's so interesting.
That's great. So we're going to definitely dig deeper into that. But before we get into it, was farmland your first real estate investment, or did you invest in real estate before that?
Through my family, we've invested in real estate. Before that, we built some apartments using tax credits, and that was an interesting learning experience, and we can talk more about that later. But and then we've invested, besides the farmland that we actually farm on, we also have invested in some hunting / farming properties, both in Arkansas, that have performed well for us. In fact, in one of them, we've sold the original farm that we bought. We grew rice on it as well as allowed others to hunt. We've sold that and now are rolling those funds with some of our other members into other farmland, just because it did great. When my brother first brought it up, I thought, this is really not a good idea. But he was right and I was wrong.
So he brought up the idea of investing in I guess it was hunting land, or
in farmland that you allow others to hunt on.
Okay.
Which is another, that particular property grew rice. But we more than doubled our money just allowing other people to hunt ducks on it.
Wow, that is incredible.
Yeah.
There are so many ways to make money with real estate. I love it.
It's so interesting.
Like renting out for hunting. That's genius. That's so cool. That's great. So, okay, so now tell us a little bit more about like why farmland is different from other, because you were saying that, you know, it even that farmland is even more different, or like more or less tied to the greater economy than other types of real estate. And some, like, tell me why farmland? Why do you like it, and why should somebody invest in it?
We joke that farmland is boring, but in this case, boring is a good thing. If you look back 20, 30 years and you track the appreciation of value in farmland against the stock market generally, other asset classes such as gold, stocks, bonds, it's really if the volatility is not correlated at all much that we can tell from looking at historical data with ups and downs in the stock market. So it plunks along. You know, it's not ever going to really grow at a super quick rate, but it's steady, and it has appreciated, you know, year over year for the last 30 years. And so we like that. The other thing that a recent statistic I learned that kind of frightened me was in the United States, we lose on average 3 acres of farmland per minute.
Wow.
Per minute. And I don't know about the rest of the world, but in the US, that's the statistic. And yet our population is growing and we need to feed people. There's a first sort of older generation of farmers who are maybe nearing the end of their careers. Sometimes their children want to grow and farm. Sometimes they do not. And you may have a mix within a family. And so when Carter started thinking about farmland and how could we make it more accessible to other people, and how could we help our country ensure continuity of food supply, and perhaps provide some liquidity for some families that don't want to farm anymore, he kind of conceptualized the idea of AcreTrader. And farmland, the other thing about it is that's good is you get annual income generated by rent paid by a tenant. About 30 to 40% of farms in the United States are not operated by their owner. So you have a lot of rented farmland. And in our case, we have annual income that comes in cash. In some instances, there could be crop sharing as well, but generally it's cash rent. So we get that every year and distribute it to investors. And then over time, you have the year over year appreciation value of the real estate farmland itself. And so upon, when we find a good opportunity to liquidate the farmland and sell it to a new owner, we distribute those profits as well. So.
Wow. So, I mean, there are a couple of very cool things that I'm hearing about farmland. I guess one is that with supply dwindling so much, right, then that must definitely help with the appreciation and values. What kind of returns can you get with farmland?
If you look back over the last 15 to 20 years, probably it averages a 10 to 11%, sometimes as high as 12%. And that does include adding the yield you get annually to the growth, the appreciation value. But it's not a bad return, especially if an investor. Historically, a big barrier to entry for farming is it's expensive, and a lot of people don't have the knowledge base to farm or know where to start. So our idea was, let's make it accessible. We take care of managing the farm, filing the property taxes, doing the diligence on the property to find out if we think it would be a good value and a long-term good investment for people. So really, it's passive investing for investors in AcreTrader farms because they don't really have to do anything other than collect money and wait a little bit,
That's awesome. So, for the listeners on this show, we talk a lot about syndications, which is, a type of crowdfunding, bringing investors together to purchase larger properties. And that's essentially what you're doing here. You're syndicating farmland. And that's pretty neat. So who can invest in AcreTrader?
At this point, the exemption we're using with the Securities and Exchange Commission is Rule 506C of Regulation D. So right now we're only able to accept accredited investors. But we're definitely strongly considering using Reg A Plus and trying to do some offerings that way to open it up to other investors. But our minimum investment is about $5,000. Sometimes, depending on the size of the property and the value, the initial entry could be as high, or initial minimum investment could be as high as $10,000. But it doesn't take very long to go on and look through our offerings and decide if you wanted to invest, you could do so in not very many minutes.
Wow. All right. So that's very cool. So accredited investors, it means you have to have an income minimum of $200,000 as an individual, $300,000 as a married couple, or have a net worth of $1 million, not including your primary residence. Filling in
Look
for
at you.
My listeners. Oh, well, I'm a syndicator, so that's what I do. Not farmland, but yet. But I definitely need to know my 506Bs and Cs and Reg A pluses. So, but for those who are listening, if you fall under that, if you're an accredited investor, this is a super interesting type of opportunity. And you can get in for a lot less than their typical syndication, which I think is neat, because often minimums are, $50,000,
Right.
To get into a syndication. So something that you can get into for as little as $5 is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's kind of exciting. We are having a ball. We're working hard and learning as fast as we can, and just trying to do well for our investors and the world, and try to help make it a better place.
That's great. So what are some of the challenges that you experience with, investing in real estate and doing it in this way? Farmland and doing it in this way.
Supply is challenging in some ways because farmland does not transact very frequently. And when it does, it's often private transactions. Most farms are not listed on the multi-list services. So our challenge to grow our business is to create a network of contacts with realtors all across the country who might specialize in farmland, and also get our name out there and teach people that it's, because we are a fairly new company. We just went live in March of 2019. It takes a while to build trust and for people to understand what we're doing and how. So we face a lot of challenges, but we're really growing, and things are coming along well. We're excited about it. But as I said, we all learn something new every day, and that's one of my favorite things about my job.
Yeah, that's great. So, one of the questions that I ask all of my guests, because I find that we learn so much more when things go wrong versus like when things are smooth sailing. So what would you say was your biggest mistake in your real estate investing career? What did you learn from it?
There's sort of a two-part answer. The first is not starting sooner is a mistake. But with respect to the apartment complex that we built, that was multifamily housing that we used tax credits, I didn't do enough background research, I would say, to understand truly what we were getting into in terms of the length of the commitment. And so I would encourage all the real estate goddesses out there to make sure you've fully done your diligence, and don't just rely on what someone is telling you. certainly surround yourself, as I've heard you say a million times, surround yourself with mentors and people you trust who, want you to learn and grow, but don't take anything for granted. Do your research. Make sure you understand what you're getting into.
What would you have done differently if you know more?
I think that project I might have passed on. Not that they aren't worthwhile projects and create a lot of public good. That particular project houses a lot of people with disabilities, which is a very good thing. The thing that I personally don't like about it is that it's not very liquid, in that you have to commit to keep the project for a certain number of years to earn the tax credits. So that's just a personal preference. It doesn't mean that those types of projects aren't good and that we won't do well in it.
And how long do you have to keep it for the tax credit?
It's about, I can't remember specifically, but I think it's about 15 years. You can sell it before then, but you have to get some special permissions from state authorities as well as the people that buy your tax credits.
Okay.
So it's not an easy process, but I've learned a lot through that. And I think real estate, residential and other types of real estate investing are great investments as well. At this point, I just know a bit more about farmland, but have spotted several podcasts on your website that I'd like to watch and learn more.
There are so many different ways to invest in real estate, but that's why I'm excited to have you. I always love when I get somebody in that's doing something that I don't know much about yet. But there, as many different types of properties there are, there's different ways of investing. So I love this farmland idea. And so the flip side of the mistake question is, what are you most proud of?
I'm really proud of the team that we're building. And honestly, of course, we're all in it to make money and create better lives for our families. But I love the fact that we're preserving farmland and open space and trying to promote sustainability and growing. We hope to have some sustainable and organic offerings in the near future. But I like the idea of saving that for our future generations and helping to assure that we can feed our country and the world. I mean, the United States exports a lot of stuff, but I'm also proud of the team that we've assembled at AcreTrader. And I like technology, with the background in Silicon Valley. Technology companies are very interesting to me and appealing. And I love that we are a combination of old school farming and high tech.
That's very cool. And there'll be a link below. There's a link below where you can click on the AcreTrader, to get on the website and find out more and check out their farmland and what opportunities are there. So click the link below. Okay, so you've been quite successful in your career, and what do you attribute your success?
Mostly hard work. I've been incredibly lucky to have some awesome mentors. One of those is my father, who's this serial entrepreneur who never met a deal he didn't like. And we always joke he would sell his children if he could, but he wouldn't get returns. So we were safe. But I think just being incredibly curious about business and deals and having grown up in a household where that was a common language, and the vocabulary was there, but mostly it's hard work and not being afraid to try new things, and don't be afraid to fail. If you do, you get up and you start over. Quitting's not an option.
No. Not failure, it's feedback.
It is. Most of the things that we learn and retain are because we made a mistake, and sometimes we learn the hard way, but you don't forget.
No,
if you screw something up.
That's why I always ask about the mistakes, right? Partly because hopefully a goddess listening can avoid that same mistake, but also because there's so much gold when you have that. Like that's where the most gold happens, I think.
I think so too. I mean, there's a lot of luck involved, but I think what you're doing is phenomenal because you're encouraging growth and helping teach women to help and support each other. And if we as humans did that across the country, whether it's real estate or farming or whatever it might be, our world will be better. And so thank you for what you're doing.
Oh, thank you for what you're doing. So what advice do you have for a woman who's just starting out in real estate investing? Or another way of asking is, what do you wish you'd known at the beginning that you now know?
I wish that I had taken time early on to educate myself more about financial concepts and that language and vocabulary. I think I wish, as I mentioned earlier, I wish that I had started earlier, but I think people sometimes as humans, we're reluctant to try something new, and everything seems too big at first when it's something new. But I think with respect to investing in real estate, you must not be afraid to try. Even it's all relative. What's big for me might be small for another person. So we have to be self-aware enough to understand what can we afford to lose. Yeah. And if you've made that determination for yourself, then you know what you can afford to invest. And the syndications are a great idea because you're growing your money with someone else, but you're also de-risking yourself. Yeah. So I wish I had known all of those concepts early on. I'm 52, and a lot of that sort of knowledge was not available other than in the classroom. So I would encourage all those goddesses out there and the wannabe goddesses, do your research, but don't be afraid to try. Yeah,
that's good advice. That's true. You just have to get out there. You have to get educated, but you can't just wait. You just have to get out there and take action.
It's so true.
Yeah.
Because if we wait, there's always going to be that next hurdle or that next impediment to keeping you from starting.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's true. They say real estate investing is like planting a tree. The best time was 20 years ago. The next time is now. So you just have to get into it and get started.
Yeah.
All right. So before we get into our famed end of show Trinity, which is our brag, gratitude, and our desire, what's the best way for people to reach you or find out about AcreTrader? I mean, there'll be a link below, but what's the best way for them to find out more?
Our website address for AcreTrader is www.acretrader.com. Our office number is 479-335-5660. And my email address is just elise@acretrader.com. So we welcome questions and inquiries, even if someone maybe can't invest yet. If they still want to know more about farmland, we're happy to talk and share what we know and maybe learn something from them.
Beautiful. All right. Well, thank you. You guys heard it there, acretrader.com or Elise@acretrader.com. And I don't remember that phone number, but just for one.
It's on our website.
All right. So, okay, time for this Trinity. One brag? What's one thing you're celebrating right
now? I am celebrating just the tremendous amount of knowledge I've had to acquire in the last 6 months. I've had to relearn some things I forgot. Crowdfunding wasn't an issue, even in existence the last time I practiced law in a firm. So I have to say my brain is less pliable than it was back then, a few years ago. But I just love learning, and this is so exciting.
Well bragged. And what's one thing you're grateful for?
I am so thankful for my family. Extended, my immediate family as well as extended, and I'm thankful for my coworkers at AcreTrader. I feel like at 52 I've found my tribe. Not that I didn't fit other places, but everything's just kind of lined up, and it's a blessing.
So wonderful when that happens.
Yeah.
Beautiful digestion. Thank you. So last but certainly not least, what's one thing you desire?
I desire to be wildly successful and accomplish more things in the next 10 years than I ever imagined I could. I know that's not specific, but as I've gotten older, I've had this nagging suspicion that I could have done more. So I would love to see AcreTrader be successful. I don't know what that exit looks like yet, but I can't wait to find out.
Well, so shall your desire be, or so much better than you can imagine.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for joining us on the podcast today and sharing this really fascinating asset class and your story with us. It was a pleasure.
Well, thank you for having me. I enjoyed it. If I'm ever in LA, I'm going to call you and come visit you live.
For sure. That'll be fun. And I don't know if I'll get to Arkansas, but I'll let you know if I do.
Hopefully we'll run into you at some more conferences. That would be fabulous.
That would be fabulous. All right. Yeah. It's fun to see each other, but it's not the same as being able to hug. So.
Exactly. I'm hugging you.
Virtual hug. All right. Well, thank you again. And thanks to you here for listening, and join us next time for another Real Estate Investor Goddess interview. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.